Welcome to this week's episode of Jacket Sports Weekly. I'm Brock Owens, and I have Austin Bechtold as well with me on the desk right now. We'll have panelists to come in and analyze football, men's and women's soccer. But for right now, Austin, we're going to start with talking about football. A 27-20 loss that came down to the final drive against number 18 ranked in the country, Carnegie Mellon.
It did, Brock. Great to be with you. You know, the Yellow Jackets put a really impressive performance to the table on homecoming at John F. Wiley Stadium. Look, this was the 18th ranked team in all Division III football in Carnegie Mellon, a team that is built on defense. And it was the Waynesburg offense that really found a ton of success. Dakota Romantino, 2 touchdowns, one of very long variety, 73 yards from Tyler Raines, 213 yards total receiving for Romantino. And the running game started to get going a little bit. We saw Hunter Cameron. We also saw Justin Flack, pretty much around the same totals of around 50 yards rushing between the two. And Waynesburg overall played a very solid game, but was just not able to stop Carnegie Mellon in the final moments with a long touchdown drive of around 6.5 minutes that ended up being the decider in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, as you mentioned, that Carnegie Mellon defense is really, really solid. That 20 points is the second most a team has put up against Carnegie Mellon this season in their 6 games, other than Grove City's 33 they put up on Carnegie Mellon. But the defensive side of the ball wasn't too bad for Waynesburg either, and the star was really Emmanuel Myers with 11 tackles, 1 for loss, half a sack.
Right, but how about on the other side for Carnegie Mellon? Robert Corey, 11 tackles. He had 2 sacks. He had 6 tackles for loss, and he had a forced fumble. I mean, that's a great month for somebody, and to be able to have that type of performance against Waynesburg, very impressive. And part of the reason why Carnegie Mellon is this tough of a defense to be able to go up against and is the favorites to win the entire PAC.
Saturday, Waynesburg will travel to Bethany to take on the 1-4 Bison. Now we're going to move on to men's soccer. We'll come back to football a little later. But as far as men's soccer goes, they're 3-4-5 right now, 1-3 in conference play. Their last 2 games were a tie 1-1 against Washington and Jefferson and a loss 1-0 against Allegheny.
Right, and a couple of difficult matchups for the Yellow Jackets. Michael Francis actually got ejected in one of the games, and that's, Waynesburg ended up falling, but he ended up giving up the goal in the loss. But just some of the things that we're seeing from this team, just not being able to put together a complete performance and somewhat being outplayed. A lot of penalties on the opposing side for the Yellow Jackets. The opponent's trying to be physical with Waynesburg, and we've only really seen Sam Hawkins, the only guy that's really been able to find the back of the net and be able to score consistently with 4 goals.
Yeah, like you said, he's the only one that has been able to find the net, and the only 1 goal Waynesburg has gotten in its last 2 games. And the next couple of games are pretty tough matchups as well. The next one is Wednesday against the defending PAC champion Bethany Bison, who are 6-3-4 this season. And then they'll come back home for Senior Day on Saturday against the Westminster Titans, who are 6-5-1 on the season. As far as women's soccer goes, they are also, with the same record, 3-4-5 on the season, and they have tied each of its last 2 matchups, 0-0 against Washington Jefferson, 1-1 against Allegheny.
Right, 7 total points as well as 4 ties. It seems like every week that we're here on Jacket Sports Weekly, we're talking about the soccer team, either men's or women's, tying, which doesn't really do great for the logjam of standings in the PAC for the Yellow Jackets to be able to move up, where you're basically just treading water at this point, trying to figure out what the ultimate goal is going to be. Technically 8th place, but tied for 5th if you look at points in terms of just overall record. So it's going to be a struggle coming up potentially for the Yellow Jackets to try to get into a good position in the standings, to find a way at the very end of the year to be where you want to be at the very top. And Bethany and Westminster coming up, with Westminster being a Senior Day game, 2 must-wins.
Yeah, and their next coming games are, once again, they face the Bethany Bison. We have a lot of that this week. Bethany is 8-2-3 on the season, so having a very good year. That's Tuesday night, and then Saturday, Senior Day against Westminster, who's 8-3-1, so another tough matchup there.
Yeah, tough matchups, and we're going to see really what this team is made of, and I think the same thing with the men's soccer team. This is pretty much, I think, the make or break point, Brock, for these teams going into the home stretch for the season.
And another sport I just want to mention here in the Open is volleyball. They've been struggling a little bit as of late, Austin.
Yeah, it's been a tough going for head coach Emily Grossman and the volleyball team. 2-16 overall, lost the last 10, 0-3 in the PAC. 3 matches this week against Geneva on the road, as well as St. Vincent Thursday at home, Franciscan at home on Saturday. It's just been a difficult matchup for this volleyball team that's lost a lot of key contributors from last season, trying to just find a way to be able to pull out a couple more victories before the season is up and be able to build some positive momentum moving forward in the program's future. Some other events that were going on around the campus of Waynesburg. Men's and women's golf is taking place in the PAC Championships. That's taking place on Wednesday as well as Thursday in Warren, Ohio. Track and field had the Waynesburg Homecoming 5K this past weekend. Michael Leith was there covering it. There are a lot of people there talking about it as well for the football broadcast. And Brock women's tennis against Westminster also going on. Track and field in the Aubrey Shank Invitational on Saturday. That is be in Gettysburg, as well as esports, League of Legends, Super Smash Bros, and Rocket League also taking place this week, with Overwatch 2 beginning very soon on Thursdays.
We've got a lot of Waynesburg action going on over the next week, but we're here to talk a little more in depth about football when we're back on Jacket Sports Weekly.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly. We're talking a little more football right now, and we have Logan Lepiscopo on the desk with us. Thanks for joining us, Logan.
Of course.
And just give us some of your general thoughts on what you saw in this Carnegie Mellon game.
Well, first of all, coming in to play against the number 18 ranked team in the nation is obviously a task that not every team is looking forward to. Waynesburg, they came out in this game and they showed that they were up to that challenge, only losing by 7 points. You have to be proud of that. The team may hold their heads down. They may be upset because of the loss. Homecoming weekend, they feel like they may have let the fans down. But realistically, as a team, you have to be proud of that performance. And it was just a great showcase, especially on homecoming weekend. That's exactly what you want to do when all the alumni are coming back and watching you play football.
And Logan, this was a team that was also down 13-0 at halftime and continuously fought back to tie it, whether it was 13-13, 20-20, before a 7.5-minute scoring drive by Carnegie Mellon to win it. What were your thoughts on the resiliency the team showed?
The team showed great resilience, and like I mentioned before, you can't be upset about this performance. Obviously, taking a loss, moving down in record is going to be disappointing. You want to put on a show, you want to have a great season, especially after last year. But the team played really well. The offense was clicking on all cylinders. The defense was making its stops that it needed to. It was just unfortunate that it came down to that final drive where there was, I'm assuming, some type of miscommunication between Tyler Raines and the rest of the offense. But nonetheless, Carnegie Mellon's defensive back made a great play to get that interception, get the toe tap on the sideline. And it's tough as a team that it came down to that final play.
And talking about the offense, I don't think we can do this episode without mentioning someone who we've talked about extensively time and time again, but he has done it again, Dakota Romantino, Logan.
There's so many nice things you can say about Dakota Romantino. In this game, he showed he has that dog in him, Brock. He absolutely does. 6 catches, 213 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's been very quiet all season long. He comes in this game against a number 18 ranked team nationally in Division III football and puts up that performance. How do you not continue to feed him the football? Dakota Romantino was the reason the team stayed in this game, and that double move that he had for his first touchdown, outstanding route running by Romantino. And while the running game couldn't get going, he picked up for that. And it was just a beautiful game from Romantino.
It was a fantastic route, and we saw Justin Flack have an okay day, but also Hunter Cameron step in and lead the team in rushing. Do you think that his emergence could be something where we see him more often in the backfield?
I think it's definitely a possibility. We kind of see Nick Hall slowly move out of this Waynesburg offense and Hunter Cameron come and step in. So could be a possibility that Cameron starts to get more snaps. I love his running style. He just wants to always level somebody, put somebody into the turf, And I think that with Flack, he's been dealing with the injury. He came off in this game for a little bit. I believe he came back in, though, later in the game. He was dealing with some type of tightness in his legs. He was being stretched out on the sideline. But I think Hunter Cameron is going to be a great addition to the offense, and he's going to continue to get reps, especially with Justin Flack leaving the team next season.
And on moving to the defensive side, who are some of the guys that stand out to you on that side of the ball?
I think number one's got to be Emmanuel Myers, the freshman from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He hadn't got really much playing time or put up much statistics so far, and he comes into this game, 11 total tackles, half a sack. He just played absolutely amazing. And the rest of the defense, Ricky Farr, I think he did a fairly good job as far as defensive backs go. Linebacker group, there's so much good things to say about Huey and Durr and James Davis. Those guys are always stepping up and making plays when they need to. It's just a matter of, I hate to say it once again, but week in and week out, it's the defensive backs that need to stop big plays from happening. They did that this week, no long touchdowns, which is a great step up, but those constant checkdowns that turn into 7-8 yard gains every play, you can't continue to have that happen.
So Waynesburg 2-3 overall and 1-2 in PAC play after winning the first game of the year at home against Geneva to count in conference matchups with 8 conference games this season. What do you think going into next week on the road at Bethany, the Yellow Jackets should try to do to be able to strike early and often?
I think they just need to do what they've been doing. They need to come out, Dakota Romantino, keep him involved. He's coming off this big game, obviously down about the loss, but from a personal perspective, he wants to continue that momentum into Bethany. Bethany's obviously nowhere near as good as Carnegie Mellon's team is, but the team's going to come out, put up a great offensive performance. They're going to get back into a groove of things. The rest of the schedule for the season, I think, looks very good for Waynesburg. I think there's potential to finish 5-5 overall, maybe perhaps even 6-4 on the season.
Well, sadly, that's going to do it for our football segment. Just to mention it one more time, 1-4 Bethany at Bethany is where the Waynesburg football team will be this Saturday. When we come back, we'll be talking more about the men's soccer team.
Welcome back into Jacket Sports Weekly. Let's turn our attention now to the men's soccer team with Tyler Zeman. So Tyler, tie against W&J 1-1 at home, and a loss to Allegheny at home 1-0 for the men's soccer team. What's your overall assessment of the past week?
Yeah, well, I thought the W&J game, a 1-1 tie, is fair. Waynesburg again found themselves off to a slow start, and it was really all W&J. Now the penalty kick that W&J would go on to score the first goal with, the penalty kick, it was one of those where it's really a referee's discretion. It could have gone either way. It went against Waynesburg in this case, and obviously W&J, a team that is very good at scoring goals, they're going to take advantage of that, and they got on the board. But after that penalty went in, Waynesburg really responded, and just a few minutes later, it was the one and only Sam Hawkins who was able to put the ball into the back of the net for Waynesburg and put the game at 1-1. Sam Hawkins has just been on fire to start the season, and he's been really good. So I think really they deserve a 1-1 draw there. And on Saturday against Allegheny, a 1-0 loss, I think that's deserving for Waynesburg. They didn't really do anything to go on to try to win that game. They didn't really do anything to help their cause in potentially getting a better result in that one. So I think both results this past week were what Waynesburg should have expected.
3-4-5 overall, 1-1-3 in conference. Moral of the story, there's been a lot of ties here, Tyler. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't have I think the ties have really helped them in this scenario. I know you guys both disagree. Everybody thinks the ties have really hurt them. But for me, I think the 3 ties have helped them. Again, 6 teams make the PAC playoffs. Waynesburg is sitting in 7th place with that 1-1-3 record. St. Vincent, who is 6th place, again, in the PAC playoffs right now, has the same 1-1-3 record. And let's remember that St. Vincent was a team that one of those draws Waynesburg drew against. So the draw helps them there. The loss against Allegheny, who's currently in 5th place, doesn't really help Waynesburg. But the draw against the fourth place W&J Presidents helps them in that scenario too. The one that's really concerning, though, is the one against Chatham, the open PAC play. Chatham, they have not been doing well this season, all the way down at the bottom of the PAC table. Waynesburg really needed to win that game. So realistically, they should probably be 2-1-2. But again, I'll take the 3 ties because Waynesburg's still knocking on the door of the PAC playoffs.
In the Allegheny matchup, Michael Frankus, the goaltender, was ejected in the 38th minute with a red card. Walk us through the process of what all happened there and why he was not able to participate in the rest of the game.
Yeah, so Allegheny really broke down Waynesburg pretty quickly, and it happened to be where it was a one-on-one where the Allegheny attacker was coming towards Michael Francis, and I didn't see the play for myself, but what I heard is Francis, he did go to make a play on the ball, and he didn't get the ball, and he did get the Allegheny attacker pretty much stopping the goal-scoring opportunity. In those scenarios, again, it's really just what the referee sees for where he's at. Francis does take away a goal-scoring opportunity. So for me, I think the red card is deserving. But for many, it could have just been a simple yellow card, and Francis could have stayed in the game. But Clay James, who came in to take Michael Francis' spot for the rest of the game, he did play really well, and they're going to need him to play well because they have Bethany coming up this week. And, that Allegheny matchup that James came in for, he played well, and I think he can continue to carry that into this one against Bethany.
In the last 2 games, Tyler, Waynesburg's only been able to put up 1 goal. What do they need to do moving forward to be able to change that, put up a few more goals?
Well, right now they're shooting the ball really well. They've been outshot by their opponents, but the shots on goals in the last 2 games, they've put more shots on goal than their opponent, which is a good thing. They really just need to finish. As you alluded to, Brock, they haven't been scoring the goals that they needed to. They have 5 goals in PAC play, so they're averaging a goal a game. But again, with a defense that has been a little bit leaky at times, you're going to need more than that. So they're going to have to keep relying on Sam Hawkins, but they're also going to need a few more guys to step up.
Tyler, appreciate the time joining us. Bethany and Westminster, the 2 opponents this week, and senior day for the men's soccer team this Saturday. It will also be senior day for the women's soccer team. Colin Rhodes will join us to discuss coming up next on Jacket Sports Weekly.
Have you ever been to the Everly Library? If not, you should, because it's great. They have books of all different genres: history, biography, fiction. Try The Evolution of Life, Life of Pi, or Jurassic Park. So what if books aren't your thing? Try movies like Frozen, or TV shows like Lost. Books and DVDs aren't the only thing, though. Take a trip to the 2nd floor. Welcome to the Writing Center. These tutors will tell you everything you need to know about writing a paper, and they'll help revise your essays. Now let's head back down. Behold, the Knox Learning Center. Need to print something out 5 minutes before your next class because you procrastinated? No problem. You can also print off pictures of dogs. Because, well, you can. So grab your homework, laptop, and textbook, and study diligently. Bring your lunch too. Actually, you can't. That's illegal. Now you know the Everly Library. Stop by anytime. Seriously, it's open all week.
We just got done talking about men's soccer here on Jacket Sports Weekly. Now we're going to the other side of things with the women's soccer team, and we're having Colin Rhodes join us right now. So once again, thank you for joining us, Colin. The last 2 matchups that this women's team has had, both ending in ties, 0-0 against W&J last Wednesday, and then on Saturday, 1-1 against Allegheny.
Yeah, really, these ties have been coming just like back to back. That's almost all they have right now. They're leading the President's Athletic Conference in ties with 4. The second next teams only have 2. Looking at the W&J tie, W&J outshot Waynesburg 24-3. The Presidents had 12 shots on goal. Waynesburg only had 1. But again, the score was 0-0. So obviously, the defense for Waynesburg was really good that game. That seemed to be where all of the great playing went to. Kennedy Shook had 12 saves that game. And Sarah Rentler was the only one for Waynesburg to have a shot on goal. It really was sort of just low to mid shot percentage for both teams. Washington and Jefferson 50%, Waynesburg 33%. But I will say this was a good tie for the Yellow Jackets. Washington and Jefferson is a good team, to say the least, and the fact that they tied them with no goals whatsoever is great. But needless to say, I'm not surprised Waynesburg didn't get any goals in this.
So what about the Allegheny tie? Maddie Hill scoring the only goal from Grace Ingram. Seems like, we kind of talked about it a little bit with Tyler Zeman. He likes the ties. We think that, they are creating the opportunity to continue to get some points, but not being able to completely just move up in terms of total points to be in a spot that you want to be in the standings. What did you think of the Allegheny matchup in general?
Well, the Allegheny matchup, it's a little bit better than the Washington and Jefferson matchup. Obviously, both teams scored goals. Waynesburg had 9 shots, 7 on goal, while Allegheny had 12 shots, 4 on goal. So obviously, Waynesburg's offense looked a lot better with more quality shots against the Gators. Of course, you mentioned Maddie Hill with the lone goal on the assist from Grace Ingram. And then Sarah Rentler also showed up with 3 shots of her own, 2 of them on goal. And then Kennedy Shook, who was in net for that game, had 3 saves and a single goal allowed. Really, though, they need to start winning these games because there's a lot of teams they're tied with in the PAC with 7 points. And right now, they're at the very bottom of what would be the playoffs. And if they keep tying, they're not going to see themselves get any more than like 6th at the most when the playoffs start.
You're talking about winning those games, and the next matchup this Lady Jackets team has is a team that does win a lot of these games. It's Bethany, who's 8-2-3 on the season, Colin.
Yeah, this Bethany matchup is looking a lot less favorable for Waynesburg because Bethany has gotten 8 wins overall for the first time since 2011. That's a big drought for to not have that number. And then you look at some of Bethany's games, they're a little flip-flop. They're 2-2-1 in the PAC. They won their last game against St. Vincent 1-0, and then they lost 6-1 against Chatham. Chatham, of course, is one of the best teams in the PAC, so it's not terrible for them to have lost that way. And again, though, this is not a game Waynesburg, I think, can afford to tie in, simply because of who it is they're playing and the fact that the end of the season is getting closer and closer with each passing game. And then looking at just some of the comparison statistics, Waynesburg is averaging about 1.5 goals per game, 9 shots per game. Bethany is averaging 3.6 goals per game and 20 shots per game. A very big difference. The defense is going to have to step up, and the offense is going to have to step up even more to keep up with this Bethany team. Major
difference. Now let's look ahead to Saturday's matchup against Westminster. So men's and women's soccer honoring the seniors on senior day. And what do you think, Colin, of that matchup against the Westminster team? It's coming into John F. Wiley Stadium, also looking to try to play a Waynesburg team and maybe not tie.
Yeah, again, it's that whole end of the season coming closer, so sort of need to win it. Westminster, I think, is sort of with Waynesburg in terms of points, and so like a tie, not terrible, but again, end of the season, right around the corner, playoffs. I'd say it's a win. It has to be a win if they want to get themselves in good situation.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Jacket Sports Weekly. Tune in next time and tune in for the rest of the week for other shows we have here on WCTV.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.